The Chevy Blazer EV is GM's first mass-produced ultium-based EV. Based very similarly on the Lyriq, this should appeal to more customers with a little bit lower of a price and some additional Chevy-only tech that you can't see anywhere else right now. Is it any good? Should you go check it out? And will GM be able to produce enough of them? Let's go for a drive and find out. Behind the wheel of the Blazer EV feels very similar to the Lyriq if you've had a chance to drive one. I know most of you haven't because delivery's been a little bit slow. But I went into this thinking of it as a separate car. I didn't think this was a GM 90s badge engineered type of product. But there are a lot of similarities. One, platform. Two, just sort of the good driving dynamics and the good driving experience that comes with Lyriq translates very well into Blazer. Now, there's a few things that are a little bit different. The ride in Blazer's a little stiffer, probably a little bit more quote-unquote sporty. And the spring rate's probably a little bit stronger just because the car's heavy and you got to support batteries and all of that jazz. But I wouldn't say that it's uncomfortable. When you do run over broken pavement or potholes, like you feel that you hit a pothole, but it's not vibrating through the steering wheel. It's not jarring your teeth out. Like it seems to be pretty well controlled. So the suspension kind of tuning is pretty good in here. There's not a significant difference also in steering between the rear drive and all-wheel drive. So typically, even in gas-powered cars, the rear drive variants tend to have a little bit better steering feel just because there's less weight up front. With the motor up here delivering power, like the EV6 all-wheel drive, for example, I don't like driving as well as I do the rear drive because it kind of feels like this, you can kind of feel like this almost dead weight up front. And surprisingly, I do not feel that here, which I think is a real testament to GM's engineers, because it feels not that much different than the rear drive one. So if you're looking for the sporty-ish one to drive and you don't care if you have all-wheel drive, like, sure, get the rear drive, but you're not losing as much driving feel. I use air quotes here because it's electric power assist steering and all of that stuff. But you don't lose as much of that feel going with all-wheel drive. So if you need the all-wheel drive, get it. Don't feel like you're getting the less performance in terms of handling and back roads cruising. At highway speed, super quiet in here. I mean, as quiet as the Lyriq, nearly luxury car quiet. Tire noise is kept to a minimum. This RS version we're in has 21-inch wheels, which are probably a little too big for an EV, but they fit well. And the aero covers on them seem to do a good job at helping improve efficiency at higher speeds. But there's very little to no wind noise. Nothing's coming from the mirrors. I wish the mirrors were a little larger in terms of visibility. The advantage of them being a little bit smaller is you don't get this big wind noise, this whistle of wind there. And of course, there's blind spot monitoring and stuff like that, so you might be fine with the mirrors. I just would like them a little bit bigger. Otherwise, this is genuine, this is a fantastic driving car. The first 5 minutes I was in the rear drive yesterday, I thought, oh, no, I get it. Like, this is a big deal. This is a very well engineered EV. Inside, it's a little bit different than the Blazer gas. You get a nice big screen, digital instrument cluster, heads-up display. All this stuff is standard on the RS trim. You can get RS in either rear drive or all drive, and then the SS that's coming later will be all-wheel drive only, and a whole lot more horsepower, well into the 600 horsepower range. A lot of modern sort of Chevy design aesthetic in here. So like the air vents are the big round sort of kind that you sort of originally saw at a Camaro, that's sort of carried over to the gas Blazer. Steering wheel's nice and thick, like it's got a little bit extra, I think, girth to the rim, so to speak, which I think adds to the sporty feel. In Blazer EV, they moved the transmission selector up to the stock, so it's very much like a Mercedes or a Tesla pre-removing the stock. And I like it. I think the control itself is a little bit flimsy. I think that's a GM problem that I wish they would fix. But that's probably my biggest complaint about the interior. Other than that, or the gloss black. The real new thing going on here is this is GM's first iteration of their completely Android Automotive, fully baked, over-the-air updatable EV, across-the-board infotainment system. So it's Google-based. You can log in with your Google account, unless you're like me, you have a Google Workspace account, so you can access everything. And then you can download and install apps through the Google Play Store. you don't really need your phone to do, you don't necessarily need Android Auto or CarPlay, which is good because you can't use it. This is also the first version of GM's infotainment where neither one of those options are available. They'll tell you it's because, well, we can deliver a better experience because we're integrated into the vehicle. We can do things like automatic battery preconditioning when we're talking about route planning. The marketing people will say, well, Tesla doesn't have it, so clearly it's not that big of a deal. One of the biggest top-selling Tesla accessories that I've seen out there is actually a screen to mount on the dash that lets you use CarPlay. So I think there is a demand for it. I think that some automakers are a bit more intelligent about it in that they give you the choice. I mean, not to use Porsche as an example, but like, you can use both. They want you to use their built-in system because it can do all of these extra battery maintenance things and all the route planning and the guided navigation and all that. But if you want to use CarPlay, use CarPlay. And I really think customer choice should be the option here. And I'll be interested to see how the audience takes to it. Maybe nobody will care, and maybe we auto journalists are just curmudgeons and like to complain about everything. I mean, that's true. We are, and we do. The one thing about this being over-the-air updatable is, in theory, nobody's confirmed that it could be done, but in theory, they could add it later if there was enough pushback. Otherwise, I think the system works great. We're in a pre-production car, and admittedly, there may be one or two tiny issues, but overall, it's super responsive. Full Google integration works very well. You can use Google the same way you would use it on your phone. The route planning is quick. I put it in a destination all the way across the country, and it calculated that route just as quickly as a Tesla would, including the charging stops, so you're not waiting for a whole bunch of phoning home and all of this. It's very responsive, very quick. I'm looking forward to seeing this in more of the GM EV products. I could see owning this car. I think a lot of people are going to like it. As long as GM can deliver them, I think they've got a really good offering on their hands. And what's really interesting about Blazer is that it's kind of funny that you can get this car in front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, or rear-wheel drive. The base entry level, the LT trim, is front drive, small battery. The long range version you want is the rear drive, big battery, with like RS, and then of course SS. This sort of sits in this weird kind of middle kind of sweet spot of like, we can just offer you everything. Because like Equinox is going to be front drive only. Well, front drive or all drive, I should say. If something comes along that's higher up than Blazer, it's just probably going to be just rear drive and all drive. Logic behind the front drive offering is that it shares a lot of components with the upcoming Equinox, so it's just kind of easier to include that sort of motor and that sort of packaging. I'll have to admit, initially I was like, why do I need, I've never had a car before I could get in front, rear, or all-wheel drive. I kind of want like kitty corner drive, like can I use power to this wheel up here and then that wheel in the back? The couple bigger other unknowns is this isn't the cheapest car in the world. Available right now is the RS all-wheel drive. Rear-wheel drive is coming soon, and then the LT is coming, I think, next year, maybe a little bit later, and that'll be their volume seller. So they're definitely targeting the smaller sellers first. But in the car that we're in right now, it's $60,000, and it doesn't feel like it's not worth $60,000, and a lot of other EVs that are in that sort of $60,000 to $65,000 price point right now, this feels on par with those. And in some ways, there's some things here that I think are done a lot better. The integration of Google Maps, the infotainment screen, it's just prettier to look at than on a lot of these cars. It's nice and big. The digital rear view camera, which GM's been using them for what feels like millennia. Each new version of the car that they sell, it's better in. Like, the refresh rate's better, the time from the camera to the back, like everything just jives well. It feels very natural. Where other automakers, like the Nissan Ariya that I was just in, feel a generation or two older. This feels very cutting edge, very modern. Last but surely not least, I'm in a red and black interior, which I think is great. Offer more colors. Offer colors on exterior. Colors are great. I don't care if most people buy shades of gray. Buy a car in color. We find the Blazer EV to be an extremely competitive alternative to the Tesla Model Y that just happens to have more space and a different approach to technology. Now this all-wheel drive RS variant here is a little pricey at over 60 grand. The beauty is that Blazer will be available for everybody. There'll be an SS high performance with over 600 horsepower, and there is going to be a much more affordable mass version LT front drive version, which should really fit this sweet spot of somebody that needs the space of a large midsize crossover, who doesn't necessarily want to have a Tesla because they want the better dealer network or whatever, but also doesn't want to break the bank. We look forward to driving, of course, both of those in the future, but the RS that's sitting right here right now feels good. It feels like it belongs, and it doesn't feel like it's out of place with the eGMP competitors that we love so much and the sales success that is the Model Y. If you're thinking about doing it, you should do yourself a favor and right now go to a dealership and give it a drive. They should be available there right now. Maybe you like the Blazer but are looking for something a bit fancier? Check out my first drive of the Cadillac Lyriq, also built on Ultium, by clicking the video link on the screen right now.